Welcome back. Today we are talking about 18, the moon. And Sallie Nichols thinks of this card as unifying your conscious guidance with your instinctual drive to stay your path, which was established in 17, the star. And for Sallie Nichols, one of the focal points of this chapter is this crawfish. That's what she calls it. If you call it a crawdad or a crayfish or any of the other sort of regionalisms for this small crustacean, that's what it is. But she calls it a crawfish, so that's going to be how I refer to it. And her focus is sort of putting this forth as the idea of the hero's consciousness, which I disagree with fundamentally, especially because of how she talks about the card in the rest of the chapter. For me, it makes much more sense that the crawfish represents the hero's instinctual drive and not just consciousness, that it's the sort of more instinctual side, because the rest of the chapter is basically Sallie Nichols making the argument that this card is about nature, natural law, sort of like natural hierarchies that show up sort of like the food chain, that kind of thing, not like a I'm better than you kind of a natural order. And that it's about having this connection to nature and to that instinctual understanding of the world that helps us better navigate towards what we want, because we are no longer sort of living in the shadow. We have started to illuminate our shadow with the light of the moon, that ever-changing constant that we have in our lives. We have taken that and we sort of take it in turns to go through the things. Almost dropped my book. We take it in turn to go through those things, to light up those individual pieces of our shadow, to bring them to light, so that we can consciously guide ourselves towards what we actually want instead of what we believed that we want, just as an ego self. So hopefully that makes sense. The other thing that she talks about that I think is really interesting is the connection in the column, the pillar, that's part of the map of the journey that we see at the very beginning of the book, where if you take the cards and lay them out like Sallie Nichols says, with the Fool on its own, the first 7, the second 7, and the third 7, you have 4, the Emperor on top, 11, Strength in the middle, and then 18, the Moon underneath. And so perhaps if we take this from a sort of ancient Greek rhetoric idea, where you have a thesis, that top row, and antithesis, that bottom row, you could flip those as well, antithesis, thesis. And then that leaves you with bringing those together in the realm of equilibrium, the one in the middle, synthesis. If we take those ideas and sort of apply those to the individual rows, then we get the idea that for the Emperor is about imposing your will. It's all of this sort of logical, mental stuff that you are projecting out onto the world. And then Strength takes that and combines it with what is in the Moon, which is essentially all of the intuitive and natural stuff that we take in. And so my book keeps trying to fall off my lap. And so there we have an interesting idea of taking a combination of the stuff that we are projecting out onto the world and the things that we know about the world or that we learn about the world, and using that to better understand how to move forward, which I think is very cool. The other way we can think about this is if we think about them as different levels of that guidance, that combinatory guidance of our logical and our intuitive, which the Emperor would be a very personal level. It's what do I think and what do I feel and how do I bring those together to truly move towards what I am trying to accomplish. Leaving 11, Strength, as a more community-minded piece where you and your community come together and try to move past something that you all have to wrestle with, whether that could be all sorts of things. And then removing figures entirely in the Moon it's about a sort of a global awareness where it's being present enough to understand, to observe, and start to think about what's going on in nature, and having that sort of like more global mindset rather than an individual one, or even just stuck within human communities. It's beyond that, which I think is an excellent way of thinking about these cards as well. So thank you very much for listening. This is the second to last card in this run, and I'm very excited to talk about the next three, because I think 19, the Sun, is such a beautiful sort of wrap up for this run of cards, this cycle, starting with 15 and ending with 19. And then the next two are just a joy to talk about, because we're getting to the ending of the tarot cycle, the ending of the major arcana cycle. And 20 and 21 talk about reaching the threshold and starting on a new journey and a new chapter of your life, which is always fun to talk about. So come along, listen to those, and I will see you in a bit. Not a great dismount. Okay, love you. Bye.